You entered the forest believing there was still an outside. That simple thought is already a trap. At first, the forest does not impose itself. It pretends to be absent, and that absence is the first blow. Everything begins with an irritating calm. The air feels denser than it should, as if there were an invisible wall between you and the world you remember coming from. Your footsteps sound too dry, not because they are loud, but because they are the only sound that exists. There is no bird song to confirm daytime, no insect hum to guarantee life. There is only the mechanical cutter of your own walking, marking a rhythm that slowly slips out of sync. A shallow thought surfaces. It's just dense forest, you tell yourself, clinging to technical reasoning, because reasoning protects. But the forest does not react. It records. And this record is not observation. It is active memory. It keeps track of how much error each foot carries and charges the price in the form of direction. You notice, first in passing, a pattern that does not align with the rest of the world, a path unnaturally straight where curves should exist, a negative clearing where the wind seems to have been drained. There are moments when time stretches. 5 minutes weigh like half an hour. Your heart measures hours. The watch on your wrist feels like a joke. Your breathing requires permission. Between steps, there is an interval that is not silence, but pressure. The air itself seems to have weight. You want to laugh to break the tension, and the laugh dies before it becomes sound. There is no echo. The forest accepts your presence like an experiment. You look at the ground and find footprints that hesitate between being yours and not being yours. They appear with cruel clarity, perfect depth, sharp contour, as if someone had passed moments ago. But the direction is wrong. The toes point backward. It is not the mark of someone turning back. It is the mark of origin inverted, as if each step had been born the wrong way around. You step again, test it, mark the soil once more. The new impression conforms. The ground accepts your mistake and replicates it. In that acceptance, there is a voiceless corrosion, the idea that logic itself has refused to function. Your mind tries to explain fatigue, shadows, tricks of vision, and fails. Rational explanation collapses before the physical clarity of the error. The ground smiles with a different logic. Here, the path has its own will, and that will is not benevolent. A whistle appears, low and irregular, always from the opposite direction you turn toward. A warning that does not call, a melody that corrects. Sometimes it sounds childish. Sometimes it sounds like a machine imitating childhood. There is no human rhythm there, only anticipation, as if something knew exactly when you would taste panic and prepared to savor it. The trees begin to repeat themselves with slight variations that torment you. Trunks you swear you already passed reappear, as if the forest had folded paths over themselves. The sensation is of manipulated déjà vu, a repetition that is not the observer's memory, but an imposition of the environment. When you try to mark a point with an object, it reappears in an uncertain place minutes later. When you try to take a photograph, the image returns slightly altered. Colors wrong, angles retouched by hands that do not belong to the present. If someone asked, you would say you lost your bearings. Losing your bearings is the arithmetic of despair here. The body reacts faster than reason, and the body begins to obey rules the mind does not yet understand. You stop and breathe. You observe. The footsteps continue even when you are not walking. This is not pursuit. it is calculation. There is no physical presence forcing you to flee. There is systematic correction. Whenever you choose, the ground corrects your choice by showing it was wrong. The correction does not hurt. It confuses, corrodes, forms habit. You feel your worst instincts, defying the flow, proving you dominate the environment, being used as a compass against you. After a span of time that can no longer be measured by a clock, something moves among the shadows, not a whole vision, but fragments that assemble an image in your consciousness, with the inevitability of a rising tide. First, there is hair, a dark mass that seems to burn beneath the shell of night. It does not fall like leaves. It insists. It rises. It moves on its own. Then a short, human foot planted in the soil with the certainty of an inverted rule, toes pointing backward, curved against the gravity of logic. There is no running, no screaming. The presence is there with the same patience the earth uses to form roots. Existing, anchoring itself, waiting. The figure that emerges lacks the exaggerated monstrosity of legend. It has childlike proportions, and that is what terrifies. Not because it is fragile, but because it seems never to have been taught to obey human rules. The voice comes without lip movement, very low, as if someone had turned a page inside your head. Why do you walk straight? The question is not curiosity, it is a verdict. You try to answer with logic, with excuses, but the words twist. The language of the world bends around the question and slips away. Here, no one walks straight. That simple sentence replaces the air, and you breathe it. The forest does not give orders. It redefines. It remaps your body. When the Curupira speaks, he does not demand sacrifice. He demands adjustment. He does not threaten wounds. He promises integration. To get lost acquires the meaning of refinement, a process in which the individual is shaped until he fits a rule. It is not death. It is incorporation. The idea is harder than steel. You try to retreat, but you cannot trust that retreat leads back outside. Every step backward duplicates the step forward, and both appear as new roots in the soil. Trying to break the repetition only makes it more solid. The external world shrinks, and your own body begins to store the geography of the currents that claim it. You try walking backward, convinced you will subvert direction. It works for a stubborn stretch of time, and therein lies another trap. The solution that seems to work becomes technique, and the technique enters the forest as method. What began as failure becomes habit. The nights within this nameless time are not nights like those outside. Darkness has layers, and you realize there are depths of absence where sound does not penetrate. There are stretches of absolute silence so dense that the smallest noise, a snapping twig, explodes and multiplies. In other intervals, sound returns but displaced. Footsteps in registers that are not human, breathing with tempos that defy heartbeats. You begin to identify in a corner of your hearing a more elaborate whistle, a melody that imitates a child's voice but ends with a sideways note that could never belong to a human throat. Thus, the forest teaches by repetition, exposure, doubt, normalization, and you adapt. Horror functions as education. Slowly, small concessions take root. Your sleep fractures into dreams of roots. You wake with the sensation that something has grown between your ribs, not as injury, but as bond. And when you open your eyes, light feels like a fabric that can be manipulated with attention. You try to map your own sanity and find holes, gaps where memories refuse to stick. The trees, when observed closely, seem to bear scars that do not belong to them, marks of steps time has not yet absorbed, designs that suggest inverted maps. At some point, the presence stops being subtle and installs itself as law. The Curupira, an ancient name now orbiting upside down, does not move abruptly. His small feet, planted with the naturalness of one born of that mistake, become living secrecy. When he turns, the wind does not follow. When he looks, no animal escapes. He is not spectacle, he is sentence. His gaze is the practical translation of home. Where it rests, the world finds a new axis and begins to rotate around it. He does not demand dramatic submission, he demands silent conformity. The voice may now be a breath passing through your body. Teaching hurts less than tearing out. You try to resist with physical strength, with reasoning, with plans, and in every attempt, the forest returns something like calm. It is a calm that invites surrender. If you retreat in fury, you feel more exhausted. If you invent a crooked path, you realize the shortcuts appear already compacted ahead of you. Freedom is a noise the forest smothers with insistence. The process proceeds without the need for explicit violence. Annihilation here is administrative. Roles exchanged, lines straightened, identity remapped. Over time, you notice your voice no longer sounds the same. Sentences that once carried your will return, echoed in smaller tones, as if they were archived samples. A strange pleasure begins to form. You no longer wake with the panic of entering. You wake with the unsettling curiosity of what adjustment will come next. You find small footprints beside yours and feel no estrangement. You feel, for the first time, the disturbing possibility of serving a function. This acceptance is the sign of conversion, and then, in a last instant of lucidity that may be blessing or curse, you try to carve a warning mark into a trunk, a knife scraping bark, meant to become memory. But when you return, the mark has changed direction. Someone passed before you or after. Someone taught the bark not to keep your intention. Words leave your mouth twisted, and you realize you already speak the language of inverted footprints. At that moment, the process completes. You are not consumed, you are converted. Your skin is not torn, your certainty dissolves. The last time you see the Curupira, he stands small and calm, looking toward the path some other unsuspecting soul will take upon entering. He smiles, not with theatrical cruelty, but with efficiency. The forest prefers economy. Integration has been completed without spectacle, silent and total. You walk again. The footprints behind you, once evidence of error, now serve as warning. One day, someone may see them and understand that this is not a path to follow. You feel this with a calm that would once have been terror. There is no shame, only function. You did not die, you were transformed. The forest smiles with your new rhythm, inverted steps marking the way, a cadence that gives meaning to your reduced existence. If whoever hears this account enters believing there is an outside, a return, that the world still offers choice, know this: the forest has already made its calculation. It teaches in layers, with patience and without fury, until the subject forgets he was ever subject. If there is humility, the lesson may resemble mercy. If there is pride, it will be sentence. And when someone approaches, hearing the whistle that once sounded like warning and now sounds like invitation, you will be there, small, firm, toes pointing backward, a living sign that does not scream, does not run, only exists. And thus, the forest breathes again, satisfied, because it has done what it has always known how to do: turn error into rule, intruder into signal, fear into routine.